Greetings to all and a warm welcome to our latest live webcast, Operating Modern Software Licensing. We're thrilled you've decided to join us for this enlightening masterclass. With each episode, we provide new highlights, technical tips, and success stories that will leave you inspired and ready to get your protection, licensing, and security techniques another step closer to perfection. At WIBU-SYSTEMS, we empower software publishers and intelligent device manufacturers with cutting-edge technologies, new business models, and tailor-made consulting training. Let us help you upgrade, optimize, and automate your entire license lifecycle management so you can focus on monetizing your business at a higher level. My name is Daniela Previtali, Global Marketing Director of WIBU-SYSTEMS, and I'm delighted to have you here with us today. We are joined by Karl Friedrich Press, Product Management, and Stefan Bamberg, Director Sales and Key Account Management, both from the headquarters of WIBU-SYSTEMS. To give you a roadmap for today's session, here is what we'll be covering. CodeMeter License Central 5.1 introduces a modern operational architecture for software licensing based on containerization and Kubernetes. The platform supports flexible deployment across public clouds or on-premises environments, while integrating seamlessly with ERP, CRM, and e-commerce systems. Different editions address varying operational requirements, simple license management to highly scalable, high-availability licensing infrastructures. Before we dive into the content, let's quickly address a few housekeeping items. For all of you tuning in today, we set aside a special segment at the end of the session exclusively for Q&A. We warmly encourage you to drop your questions into the live chat box as they come to mind. If we can't get to your question during the live discussion, rest assured we'll make it a priority to engage with you individually at a later time to address your queries. This session is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand replay will be sent straight to your inbox within the next couple of days. This way, you can revisit the insights shared today at your leisure. And don't forget, stick around for the entire live session and seize the opportunity to win an invaluable 4 hours of personalized CodeMeter consultation with our industry-leading experts. As the webinar concludes, a new browser tab will automatically open, presenting you with a quick quiz. We'll randomly select a lucky winner from those who answer correctly and make the big announcement when we release the webinar replay. Kindly note that if you win, you'll be ineligible for any other prize draws we host in 2026. Be also aware that this brief questionnaire includes additional questions aimed at gauging the quality of this masterclass. While these questions are optional, your valuable feedback will empower us to enhance the quality of our offerings and tailor our online events more precisely to meet your specific needs. And now, without any more delay, I'm delighted to hand over the reins to Stefan. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I'm Stefan Bamberg, and together with my colleague Karl Friedrich, I want to welcome you to our new webinar, Operating Modern Software Licensing. And let's have a deep look in our new CodeMeter License Central 5.1. First of all, about the agenda. So we want to introduce the highlights of the CodeMeter License Central 5.1. We want to give you an inside view in the new offerings and license models. We want to show you how migrating and updating CodeMeter License Central. Of course, to summarize at the end everything, we have key takeaways for you. And last but not least, we have the question and answers at the end of the presentation. First of all, let's see highlights of CodeMeter License Central 5.1. But I want to give you, first of all, a short inside view about how is License Central integrated in the CodeMeter universe. So first of all, we have you as the independent software vendor on the left side and your user who wants to get licenses from you on the right side. The user is working either on premises, on his PC, for example, or with cloud solutions. And you as an ISV, you want to integrate the licensing process in your e-commerce system, for example, in your CodeMeter CRM system or in your ERP system. The customer itself, it works with an on-premise software from you, on PC, for example, or on a device, or is working on-premise in the cloud, private cloud, for example, SaaS software in a public cloud, or with a mobile application that is running on his devices. Maybe you know we have different cloud containers. The CodeMeter Cloud-like container that offers just a REST API to work with licensing in your applications. We have the full-blown CodeMeter Cloud, which allows you to use the whole CodeMeter APIs and functions in your application. And of course, we have our CM dongles and our CM Act licenses, plain software licenses that work with PCs, and the licenses are tied to these PCs. So these are the license storages. And here you see the first time is the License Central, which is the initial part of everything for activations, for managing licenses at the end. Our license portal, which allows you to manage these on a higher level, for example, with OEM partners, or you give a self-service portal to your users so that the users are able to manage licenses on their own. And the process is like this. You use the License Central to create so-called tickets, activation codes that are necessary to activate the licenses at the end. In case of the cloud, we have a so-called update trigger that allows to immediately activate and update licenses in the cloud. You have your back office systems, the e-commerce systems, the CRM or ERP system that integrate the License Central as one additional piece in the whole process chain. So you are able to get an order from a customer and process that. And in the moment when you need licenses, these systems are communicating with the License Central, getting a ticket code that you send to the customer. And so the customer on the right side with that ticket code and the URL of the License Central or the license portal is able to activate such licenses in the license containers that you have offered to your customers. You can choose one of them, you can choose different of them, you can mix them. It's dependent on the use case that you have. And last but not least, we have done all the applications running from you, and these applications are working with the licenses that are activated or updated on these different license containers. So that is the whole story of CodeMeter. And now let's have a closer look to that, what we have done in this License Central 5.1. So Carl, it's yours.
Thank you, Stefan. Let's look at what the overall goal with this release was. And of course, it is our overall goal always to commit the License Central to create a more secure, reliable, and scalable product. But in this case, we took certified measures to achieve this goal. So our first step was to containerize CodeMeter License Central. We went from a more monolithic product architecture and broke it down into bits and pieces and took each part that is required to run CodeMeter License Central most efficiently and put it into a container. This, in turn, helped us to optimize the development, deployment, and distribution of updates, new versions, and of course, running CodeMeter License Central in different environments. One of these environments is a cloud-native deployment on AWS and other platforms. More on that later in the presentation. And last but not least, we really took a step further and repackaged these new offerings and rebranded the editions of CodeMeter License Central into new products that we're going to look in later. So let's look at terminology first, because some of these terms are going to come up multiple times in this presentation. And as a customer or prospect for CodeMeter License Central, you should know about them. So first, Docker container and images. Docker itself is a brand name. It's the container engine we chose. And you can think about it as shipping containers for the software, in this case, CodeMeter License Central. We pack the product, CodeMeter License Central, with everything it needs to run, so it runs the same everywhere. The containers are created automatically by supplying images, and these images are supplied by us completely. Everything you need to run is supplied through the Wibu Registry. The big value you're getting from this, you have faster installations, You have the capability of individual parts that can be updated, and you have fewer "it works on my machine" issues, where the developer says, well, it worked for me, but why doesn't it work on the customer side? Now let's talk about instances. Formerly, they were known as lines in the Wibu vocabulary. An instance is the package of all running parts of CodeMeter License Central. And an instance is either permanently available, so you can use it 100% of the time, or created and removed flexibly and automatically based on demand or on load in this case. The value of having this instance with the Docker containers is that you have an efficient use of resources and a quick recovery in case of failure, because one individual container, should fail, is not the end of the world. It can quickly recover. To control all of these containers inside of these instances, we're using Kubernetes. And Kubernetes is the orchestrator for the containers and the instances. It is there to keep services running, adds capacity when load spikes, and updates without downtime, among other things. This value from this is we have a stable service, smooth scaling, and great availability. So let's look at the technological rework and what capabilities we actually added. So first, CodeMeter License Central is fully containerized, as mentioned earlier. It is designed for modern cloud-native deployment environments. It runs now on Kubernetes, but we also continue to support our current virtual machine deployments on-premises. This creates maximum flexibility for our customers and ourselves across cloud and local infrastructures. And as another big benefit, hosting is now available in data centers worldwide, geologically, including China, meaning in Alibaba. More on that later from Stefan. We have a modular product architecture now, which accelerates updates, simplifies maintenance, and makes sure the product always is in the most up-to-date state, should a security update be required. We have automatic scalability now built in. Individual containers or the whole product can now be scaled, which dynamically adapts to changing workload demands. We have, through this, high availability and improved performance, because now it is possible to process concurrent requests faster because we have an optimized resource allocation. But we didn't only do a technological rework. We also added features and did some fixes for our customers that have been requested many, many times. We won't look at every one of them, but let's look at some highlights. There's an enhanced sorting and bulk license management for faster operations in multiple license scenarios. The order ID is now automatically created and assigned. This reduces errors and error proneness for our customers and their users. We have now, when you want to assign a serial number to a container, we have a full text search. So you can search any part of the container name and narrow down the list. So selecting them becomes much easier and more convenient than before. We have streamlined workflows for creating and assigning licenses, as well as standardized the container ID for consistency in cloud integration. So all our CM Cloud environments are natively supported and by default configured. If you want to add your own, this is also enabled. We have extended the activation authorizations for multi-license scenarios, meaning this is going to speed up processes by a lot. Speaking of faster processes, we have optimized the license replacement, which is one of our functions in CodeMeter License Central, for faster updates, as well as improve the reporting performance, which was a huge request from our customers, for quicker search results. This is not all, and you can find all the information in the release notes, so check them for further information.
Okay, now let's have a look to our new offerings and licensing models. So first of all, the licensing overview. We have, of course, the two lines on premises and on hosting. So on premises means you provide and operates the system on your own, either in a virtual machine or as a Kubernetes cluster. So you are free to choose here. You are also responsible for operation, for updates, maintenance of infrastructure, and of CodeMeter License Central. The license model is now an annual subscription. The pricing depends on connectivity, feature access, and level of customization, but the smallest version is already a free version for you, so you have a very easy first step to get used to the License Central for your activations. This is intended for the ISV with compliance requirements for self-hosted operation. So sometimes you are forced to do it in your own data center, or you have some requirements to do that. You don't to give your data outside. But on the other hand, the hosting is, of course, the more convenient situation for you. So WIBU-System provides and operates the system. It runs here natively on Kubernetes. So we have all editions run on Kubernetes because from our position, it's the easiest and fastest and best technological way to do that. Our WIBU operating services, WOPS, ensures continuous operation, updates, and maintenance. You do not have to do anything with that system. It's for you, it's a kind of a software as a service system. It's also an annual subscription. The pricing depends on connectivity, additional instances, we will learn about that later, and recovery objectives, which is very important because you have to make sure that this is for your customers a high availability system. Additional fees apply for extended functionality and customization, and we are able to offer that as a global deployment across multiple data centers. That's very important if you have customers in Asia, in the US, and of course in China, where you have legal requirements that you have to fulfill. And that's an important situation that you have to be aware of if you want to host such a system in your own data center. The CodeMeter License Central extensions, maybe you know them. These are the gateways, connectors, the portal, and the software activation wizard, for example, are available in both scenarios. You can use them as usual and can work with that to extend the possibilities of the License Central or to integrate the License Central in your back office. So the overview is hosting by WIBU-Systems is done always in Kubernetes. We have created 3 different editions, the basic one, professional, and enterprise one. If you want to host it in your own data center, you can choose, in case of the basic and professional edition, to use the virtual machine as a framework. Or you use Kubernetes, and then the enterprise edition is the right choice for you. So if you want to have highest availability, if you want to have most flexibility, then you choose the enterprise edition. And again, the License Central extensions are available for all of these parts. So let's have a closer look to the hosting options.
Yeah, let me take over again. So currently, before the License Central version 5.1 was released, we were offering 3 editions: the data center, the dedicated server, and the high availability edition. And thanks for introducing him, Stefan. Now we have the basic edition, the professional edition, and the enterprise edition. We will look later on how the migration is going to work, but for now, let's look at deeper what these options actually entail in these editions. So currently, these are the differentiators between the editions. So as a focus point, let's look at data center, dedicated server, and high availability, and how they are actually distributed. So currently, we have a different amount of data centers, different amount of availability zones, and the consistency and cost to overhead to keep this up was getting very high. So we were aiming to reduce this in this case as well and make it more safe for our customers on top. On the other hand, our RPO, recovery point objective, and RTO, recovery time objective, were in the higher hours and days for the data center and dedicated server editions, because there was a lot of manual input required to restore a virtual appliance should something go wrong. For the high availability customers, of course, this was always done in a very quick way because the second data center was immediately available and they were using a database cluster before. The new editions now. This is a big overview. There's a lot of data. Don't worry, we will go through them one by one. So let's start. In all of these editions, Cloud FSB to program the licenses is available. For our existing customers, a dongle FSB can also be included should it be required. And in the Enterprise Edition, it is possible to get an extra dongle FSB in case you want another layer of automatic failure for additional security and safety. Let's look at the database clusters. So the Enterprise Edition offers a dedicated database cluster. So not only a single database, but a whole cluster dedicated to each customer, meaning there's absolutely going to be no impact from anyone else using the database cluster. We do not expect any impact on the other editions either, but this is an extra level of comfort and convenience in this case. Both the Professional Edition and the Enterprise Edition offer a redundant database cluster, meaning there is a second database cluster in a second data center with separate storage as well to make sure that it's most seamless and there should be an instant availability should the services of the database cluster go down in any case. Only the Professional Edition and the Enterprise Edition offer direct access to the web services. For License Central, this means you are automatically able, without the graphical user interface of CodeMeter License Central, to access all the core functions needed to create, manage, activate, and use all the other processes of CodeMeter License Central to enable licensing in your environment. Automatic scaling of instances is available in the Professional Edition and the Enterprise Edition. This pertains to flexible instances. Let's look at them in detail. So, each edition has at least one permanent instance included. Permanent, as we learned earlier, means it's always going to be available 100% of the time. And you're always going to be able to rely on this to be there and process your requests. In the Enterprise Edition, 2 of them are actually included. Flexible instances are only included in the Enterprise Edition, again 2 of them, so you have 4 in total starting out. In the other editions, Basic and Professional, there's none of them included, but for the Professional Edition, it is possible to increase the number of flexible instances, meaning you can decide, maybe I want a flexible instance to make sure that I'm always going to have the maximum availability, and should load spike, you can easily get this additional flexible instance activated. So for the Enterprise Edition, you can increase the number of permanent instances and the number of flexible instances. You have maximum flexibility, so you can always choose and make sure that your enterprise is running well with CodeMeter License Central. All of the editions, we made sure now supply automatic instance failover. The Enterprise Edition has an instant failover because there's always 2 permanent flexible instances available. The other ones, as you can see in the service level agreements, are going to be up a lot of the time as well, though, because we guarantee 99.0%, 99.5%, and 99.9%. If you look at RPO and RTO, so the time until your data is recovered or your instance is recovered, it's below 8 hours for the Basic Edition, below 60 minutes for the Professional Edition, and under 1 second for the Enterprise Edition. What the change in the current, from the current to the editions now is, we will see later in the migration charts. So, in all of these editions, a web depot is included to activate the license most efficiently. In the Basic Edition, the gateways are also included. For the Professional Edition, on top of that, the generic connectors are included, which allow you to use and connect third-party systems, like Stefan mentioned earlier, like the e-commerce system, a CRM or ERP system. In the Enterprise Edition, on top of that, it is also possible to get customer-specific solutions. So if there's something you desire from our professional service team to make your processes even more sleek, to make them even more convenient, they are going to be able to help you supply it, and you're going to be able to use it in the Enterprise Edition.
Yeah, just one addition. Of course, you can use that interfaces as well. So we have an open interface that allows you to integrate your own stuff as well. But of course, our professional services team is happy to assist you.
So the core differences, as we looked at them just now, is the number of flexible instances, the automatic scaling, the automatic instance failover, the RPO and RTO times, and of course, what extensions you're able to use. So after hosting, let's now look at the on-premises editions. Before, we were offering the desktop edition, supposed to be used on one PC, and the internet edition, which was able to connect to the internet, connect to third-party systems, and basically was able to be used on the customer side. Now we changed to a free edition model as well. And again, we find the Basic Edition on premises, the Professional Edition on premises, and the Enterprise Edition on premises here. Let's also do a deep dive on what this actually means and what these editions contain. So the overview of all the 5 editions, the 2 we had before and the 3 we have now, is a really big page. Let's not look at this in detail. You're going to get the handout later and you can check this out. But let's look at the new versions in a more closer look. The first thing that immediately jumps is that the price. Look, the basic edition is a free version. It has always been WIBU's mission to supply everyone with secure software licensing, and basic edition on-premises is a great starting point to do so. In the professional edition on-premises and the enterprise edition on-premises, there's a yearly subscription fee. All of the editions are capable to be used with a cloud FSP or a dongle FSP, free of your choosing. The database use is something to be explained as well. In the basic edition on-premises and the professional edition on-premises, we are talking about virtual machine versions. There, it is possible to have an internal database, meaning the one we supplied, or an external database, which is something that you will provide in this case, that the CodeMeter license server can connect to. In the enterprise edition on-premises, which is, as we learned earlier, ran by Kubernetes, there's not really an inside. So Kubernetes runs a network of containers, and one of the containers, a couple of these containers or a database cluster, is always going to be external by design, but you supply the database then. For the license central extensions, every one of our versions offers the web depot and the gateways for convenient activation. In the professional and enterprise edition, it is possible to customize this web depot according to your corporate identity and use the generic connectors to connect to third-party systems as well. So the basic edition on-premises and the professional edition on-premises both run in a VM, so they run in the Docker, as we learned earlier, these are the containers. And the enterprise edition on-premises runs in Kubernetes only. The number of instances included for the basic edition and professional edition on-premises is 1. It's not possible to scale them because they run in a virtual machine. So it's not really a possibility to just scale and set up a completely new virtual machine. The startup time for this would be way too long in this case. In the enterprise edition on-premises, the number of instances you are getting depends on your license. If you want to get in touch with our sales team, they will explain to you exactly what would be the best way for you to do so. And of course, instance scaling is allowed because you're the operator of the system. The core differences again, look at the price here. The basic edition is free. The other 2 options have a subscription fee. One important thing to note is in the basic edition and professional edition on-premises, which are the virtual machine versions, the database and logging system is provided by WIBU-SYSTEMS because we offer a complete software with everything needed to run CodeMeter License Center. In the enterprise edition, you can freely choose which environment you want to run because we support MariaDB and MS SQL. And for the logging, we, for example, suggest Loki, Grafana, or FluentBit for the logging system. But that's something that you should provide in this case.
Okay, let's check the migrating and updating options of CodeMeter License Central. So you see these are the old versions, on-premises editions, the desktop edition, and the internet edition compared to the basic professional and enterprise edition. So, of course, the key difference is the deployment method, virtual machines versus Kubernetes. Karl Friedrich mentioned that before. Of course, we will give you guidance from our side, from sales or from our technical experts, what option is the best for you. But in principle, the desktop edition can be converted to a basic edition very easily. So you use it now as a basic edition if you had the desktop edition in earlier times. The internet edition, you have 2 options. Of course, you have the professional edition on premises, which is the logical successor of the internet edition, or you can even update to an enterprise edition. This depends on your requirements about availability and flexibility. Last but not least, of course, you can also say, hey, I am very successful in the meantime, so I want to upgrade from the desktop edition to the enterprise edition. So let's summarize that. From the current edition, desktop and internet, you have the options for basic, professional, and enterprise. In all 3 variants, you have full access to all current product features. The basic edition, of course, gives you the continuous product enhancement and optimization. That's the same story for professional and enterprise. In the professional edition, you have access to all CodeMeter License Central extensions. As mentioned before, you can create licenses via web services or connectors. You can activate licenses via the gateways. And that offers you the seamless integration via the connectors to third-party systems, like an SAP, like any other system that is able to communicate on base of web services. The enterprise on-premise version also have an improved performance through automatic instance scaling. That is what Karl Friedrich mentioned before. In the moment when you have a very high load, for example, if you sell something on Black Friday and everybody wants to activate, to buy and activate your software, automatically additional instances can be activated to get used to that load. Let's have a look on the virtual machine architecture in more detail.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. So that's something that not many customers get insight to. So let's give you this private access to our virtual machine and our architecture inside of it. So imagine the virtual machine is like a cube, and on top of that is the virtual machine. And these are the different containers and how they're working together inside of CodeMeter License Central now. So you have all the components needed to run the web depot, to activate the back end, the front end, which is something that your users use, for example, the database, CodeMeter, everything is supplied inside of the virtual machine. And it's now run on a Debian operating system compared to an Ubuntu before. On top of that, if you decide to use our standard extensions, as we mentioned earlier, the gateways, the connectors, and the external web depot, this could also be deployed in the virtual machine. If you then decide to go even further and use the license portal, all these containers that are required to run the license portal are also going to be contained inside of the virtual machine. And last but not least, if you decide to have a customer-specific extension and it requires a database, this is also going to be supplied inside of the virtual machine. So this is a quick insight on how the setup of CodeMeter License Central Basic Edition on-premises and Professional Edition on-premises is looking right now. Okay, so let's check compared to on-premises the update pathways for hosting. So before we had the data center, dedicated server and high availability versions, and now we have the Basic Edition, the Professional Edition, and the Enterprise Edition. And here it is pretty obvious. You can just go directly to the equivalent version in the future and have a very convenient migration and a similar but much better user experience than before. But let's look at that in detail in a bit. It is also possible to move from the data center version to the Professional Edition, of course, and from the dedicated server to the Enterprise Edition, as well as from the data center to the Enterprise Edition. Get in contact with our sales team and see which version fits your demands best. Okay, so let's look at detail of what you actually benefit from if you do a direct migration, so the straight arrow down in this case. From the data center edition to the new basic edition, you have a much faster RPO and RTO. So before, if you remember, we had 3 days and 24 hours in the RPO and RTO. This has now been reduced to below 8 hours. If you move from our most popular version, the dedicated server, to the professional edition, you have a much faster RPO and RTO as well, 24 hours to below 60 minutes. On top of that, should you decide to get flexible instance, you have an increased performance through automatic scaling of 2 instances, as well as increased reliability and availability. You have access to all CodeMeter License Central extensions, as well as the connectors to integrate with ERP, CM, and e-commerce systems. And last but not least, our high availability version for our biggest customers, which can be migrated into the Enterprise Edition. You have still the fastest RPO and RTO, which is below 1 second. You have now a dedicated database cluster just for your own requests, just for your own data as well. You have an increased performance to automatic scaling up to 4 instances by default. So nothing else but 2 licenses to auto migrate to this new version. And then you already have access to 4 instances, which can still be expanded and scaled beyond 4 instances without manual intervention. And you have an instant automatic failover, as mentioned before. So everything should be available for you to use at any time. But now, one of our questions that we're always getting, because we're talking about scaling, we're talking about how do I get more instances? How do you know when to do so? So our current model on when automatic scaling happens is that an additional flexible instance, which is a complete instance running CodeMeter License Central, will be started when we detect more than 70% load for at least 60 seconds on all your running instances at the moment. When this flexible instance is then running for you, we still check the load, but this flexible instance then will be stopped when we detect less than 70% load for at least 3 minutes, or in this case 180 seconds on the running instances. Don't worry, it will not be immediately stopped. It will only be stopped as like shut down in the near future and not immediately. So your request will still get successfully processed in this case. Currently, our vision is that the flexible instance is allowed to be active up to 50% of the licensing period, in this case, 1 year. This is only monitored, but does not really imply a hard cap. We want to make sure that your system always runs in the way that you need it. We will monitor this data, and should be if we see that you're using the flexible instance for more than 50% of the time, we will of course come to you with our sales team and say, well, let's see if there's another instance on the cards for you. So let's look in detail on the hosting architecture. This is also a big insight into how our hosting is run and gives you a clear idea of what efforts we go through to provide you with the most efficient licensing system. As an example, let's take the License Center dedicated server version, which is running on one VM at the moment in one data center. So this is our architecture before License Center 5.1. A request is coming in from the internet and is first checked through our firewalls. So we make sure that no wrong or false requests are coming through. After this, from the firewall, they go to the reverse proxy server. This makes sure that only the correct requests for the correct customers are arriving at their dedicated server instances that we're running inside of our data center. And last but not least, the shared FSP server makes sure that every License Center dedicated server is able to process all the requests and able to program new licenses and create activations for you. So this is our setup before. Now let's see what changed. We're looking at the hosting architecture in Kubernetes. And this is a hugely technical slide, so I'm going to try to take it slow and lead you guys through it. First, our service architecture is in a Docker cluster orchestrated by Kubernetes. This is here, if you follow the mouse pointer in this cyan cube, this is our EKS Kubernetes cluster. Inside of this Kubernetes cluster, you see these black squares. These are the nodes, and all the services, meaning CodeMeter License Central and the containers, are distributed to several nodes. And you see they're also split up. So these nodes are running in 2 different data centers, which are geographically separated to make sure if one data center fails, another one is able to pick up the load immediately, making sure that you can continue working with CodeMeter License Central at any time. The data storage itself at the bottom in purple is on a dedicated database cluster, only for us, geographically distributed storage, which also is in 2 data centers, ensuring a high availability of the data as well. This means operating services updates are seamless. If you're updating the operating system on one node, we're just going to use the load and challenge the load through your other node, for example, or through another node to make sure that your requests are processed. Automatic service restarts. If a node should turn unhealthy or is predicted to become unhealthy by our monitoring and alerting systems, is already included and done by us. On top of that, we can now guarantee resource allocation per service, so nothing will ever fall short because of a lack of resources in this case. Now that we looked at the overall architecture, let's look at what one instance for one customer will actually look like. So let's dive into one of the nodes. Here we have, at the top right, you can see it, the ISV number 98765 in a production environment. And you can already see inside of the Kubernetes namespace that all the components needed to run and process CodeMeter License Central. You have the License Central front end, which is the graphical user interface. You have the web service, which is the engine creating, managing, and updating licenses, and the web depot used to activate the licenses from the customers and customer side. Every customer environment, meaning the whole cube here, is running its own namespace. The namespace is the ISV -98765 -prod. If you have a quality instance or a development instance, this will be a separate namespace as well. Every namespace is completely isolated and cannot access any other namespaces. This makes sure that no one that isn't supposed to impacts or accesses your namespace and your instance with us. The customer data itself is stored in dedicated databases per customer environment as well, also ensuring that because of isolation, no cross-access is possible from any other instance or user, or outside as well because of the firewalls. The great part is, on top of that, the individual settings and scalings are possible for each customer environment and service. So if we notice that one of the services is getting a high amount of load, we are of course able to scale the number of instances, but we're also able to scale the instance itself as well, giving it more RAM or more processing power with more processors as well. So after all this theoretical talk, let's look at what an actual system migration from a current edition into our Kubernetes version, a transformation, looks like.
Yes, you have seen we have the previous versions, the data center, the dedicated server, and the high availability edition in former times. And these are now replaced by basic edition, professional edition, and enterprise edition. So the logical ways, of course, and this is the most used edition that we had before, it's a dedicated server, and this dedicated server is replaced by the professional edition. And of course, and this is the migration flow that we have with our customers. If you have a professional edition, and you have a former dedicated version, we have several steps that we perform to bring you from one edition to the newest edition. So the step 0 is, of course, we have a maintenance window for the migration, of course. This means that we agree with you on a special time slot, which fits best for you to make sure that your operational work is not affected too much. Then in step 1, the Kubernetes deployment is prepared with you, and the configuration and credentials are done the same time. You see that with the Helm charts that we are creating for you. And this is something that we do together with you. Your existing environment is set to maintenance mode. That's clear because your system has to stop. No additional activations or license changes should be done any longer because we need a consistent system that is transferred to the new system. So the license updates are paused. Then we make, of course, the final backup for the existing environment. And the database is migrated to the cloud database cluster aligned with your edition. So if we are talking about the professional edition now, it's migrated to this cloud database. Your environment is deployed to the Kubernetes cluster together with the Helm charts that are created before. And the final configuration of your CodeMeter license central is then completed. The Kubernetes environment is tested and validated to make sure that everything works like before and with the new environment as well. We establish monitoring and alerting mechanisms to be sure that the system is controlled all the time to see any challenges, problems that can occur, but we want to make sure that we are alerted immediately about that. And then the maintenance mode is again lifted so that your customers can now work again with your system, and the traffic is routed to the Kubernetes environment, and then the new version is ready to go, and you can work with the new edition.
Thank you, Stefan, for leading us through this migration flow. Let's look at together again, what are the advantages of hosting with WIBU-SYSTEMS? We've seen a lot of information until now, but we just want to make clear what things you have to actually worry about or take care of when you don't host with WIBU-SYSTEMS. And of course, on the first part is that we are ISO 27001 and ISO 9001 certified. On top of that, we can take care of the compliance with regulatory requirements, including NIS2 and CRA, making sure that everything is according to these requirements. We are the managers of the data center infrastructure. We take care that everything is available at all times. And for CodeMeter License Central extensions and other required software components, we take care of the deployment of new versions and everything that is needed and required to run these systems. On top of that, we also do ongoing maintenance updates, upgrades of your entire CodeMeter License Central environment. And through continuous system monitoring, we ensure high availability in your system. We, of course, also take care of secure access management to your CodeMeter License Central environment, making sure that only authorized users are able to access the licensing engine environment. On an infrastructure level, we deploy security, including firewalls, application firewalls, and DDoS and DOS protection. We also do regular backups of your whole CodeMeter License Central environment. And this is not all. There's many more things we do, but this is a really good overview of what you have to take care of and what we take care of for you in the hosting.
So let's have a look to the key takeaways. We have significant technical upgrades enhanced to the operation of the CodeMeter License Central with the new version 5.1. Everything that Karl Friedrich mentioned before from the technical side is now an advantage for you. All additions include new features and capabilities compared to previous versions. We have the global geological license delivery now available. So that is very important because in the former times, we only have a data center in Europe. Now you can choose in the different regions of the world where you want to establish and host the License Central with WIBU-SYSTEMS operating services, also including China. I will mention that again because it's very important for you that you are able to offer such an instance also in Alibaba in China due to legal requirements and of course to avoid any latency times that are occurring if you are working in a different region of the world. That is what we now can offer for you in our AWS data center. But we have established that technology in a way that we can work independent from such providers. That could be an interesting point in the future to be able to say, okay, we can change such a provider from AWS to another provider, for example. That's what we have already done with Alibaba. They are working on a slightly different technical base, but we are independent from that. So even if we have in the future a European operating system, operating data center, we are able to bring our technology also to such a new provider. This is very important for the future. Managed hosting reduces operational overhead and simplifies deployment. Of course, we are caring about everything. We are caring about the updates. We are caring about backups. We are caring about security, which is very important because such a system is your system to create money. You are creating licenses. You earn money with such a system. So high availability and cybersecurity to avoid cybersecurity attacks are absolutely critical for your operations. And WIBU-SYSTEM provides pre-tested components via the Wibu Registry. Maybe, Karl Friedrich, you can tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's self-explanatory that we test everything that we deploy to our customers. But I think the very important part to point out for CodeMeter License Central is that everything that we publish in our registry, should you be familiar with registries, is tested to work together with each other in a complete CodeMeter License Central environment. So whenever there's a new update available, you can be sure that it's going to be working with your current CodeMeter License Central version. So To follow up with that, we also updated all the related assets, including our update guide, which details on how you can update to the newest version of CodeMeter License Central, our upgrade guide, which details on how you can, for example, transform a basic edition to a professional edition, as well as deployment guides for the different environments, virtual machine and Kubernetes. They are now being updated, created, and are available for you on the website. If you want more information, you can always download the data sheet, visit the CodeMeter License Central website, or check out the WIBU operating services webpage for hosting, as well as get contact with our experts from professional services and sales to make sure that you get the latest information.
And last but not least, if you want to learn more about the terms and conditions of our hosting, please refer to our website on the terms and conditions side. There you see all the legal things about operational times, downtimes, and something like that in our terms and conditions. So we are ready with our slides, so we can start with our Q&A at the end of the session. Let's have a look to our questions. So there's one question I can see. Can I still run CodeMeter License Central 5.1 and future versions without needing a Kubernetes cluster? I can say yes, that is of course still possible. We know Kubernetes is not always part of your technical framework. So it's clear that the VM version needs to stay for a long while, even if Kubernetes offers much more possibilities to you. But yes, that is still possible.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that if you think about getting the enterprise edition on premises, you will already know if you're ready, because to be able to run this Kubernetes version of CodeMeter License Central, you will have to have data center knowledge. You will have to have knowledge on how to set up a database cluster, set up a Kubernetes cluster and run it. And you should have the appropriate manpower for that. But if you have that, of course, you can experience CodeMeter License Central at its fullest potential. On top of that, if you still want to use the virtual machine version, it is fully capable of fulfilling all your licensing needs as well.
Then another question I can see is what is the minimum version I need for my CodeMeter License Central to be updated to CodeMeter License Central 5.1? Are there any requirements?
Yeah, the basic requirement is that you should already be running a CodeMeter License Central 4.10a at minimum, because of various changes we made in the version 4.10a, which are a prerequisite to make this jump to version 5.1.
And another question is, does CodeMeter License Central share license information between instances that are running in global scenarios and in Alibaba at the same time? That's a good question, because sometimes large customers have different regions supported with their licensing mechanism. Is that possible?
While we would like it to be possible, it is currently not possible to share this licensing information because of the synchronization efforts that would be required to make sure that all your databases across various data centers are on the same level of information. So currently, we only support dedicated databases inside of the data center that we're running CodeMeter License Central in.
So if I understand that right, creation and activation of licenses are done in one license central in a certain geological area, and is independent from other geological areas.
Absolutely correct.
Another question, how does the faster updating of CodeMeter License Central versions work?
So one of the big benefits we're looking at, if you remember the VM architecture or the Kubernetes architecture, and remember the initial slide about containers, is that individual parts of the software are now separated from each other. They're not in the monolithic structure anymore. So in case there is a security change, for example, in our front-end engine PHP, then we can quickly update the front-end container, supply the update through the image in the Wibu Registry, alert our customers, and with one click they can update their front-end container, requiring minimal downtime as to before, when you had to update your whole engine.
And there's a last question in the chat. What do I get when I license CodeMeter License Central Enterprise on-premise edition? what can I expect when I download it?
Well, this is a really good question. Of course, we are always happy to get eager customers interested in the Enterprise Edition on premises. So let's start. You get access to all the Helm chart, which is the configuration to run CodeMeter License Central in Kubernetes. The Helm chart then references the values file, which is already pre-filled and accessible through our download as well. And of course, since you are now the operator of CodeMeter License Central on premises in the Enterprise Edition, you can then fill the values file with your dedicated information inside of your system you're going to be running. How you scale this software and how you configure it is completely up to you. What is up to us is still supplying you with the tested components and images inside of the Wibu Registry. And for this, a quick configuration inside of the Helm chart is required. And then you can already start using and scaling your licensing environment.
Yeah, this was the last question in the chat, but feel free to send us additional questions that came up after the webinar. So I want to thank you very much for your time, also in the name of Karl Friedrich. We hope to see you again, hope to have you again in one of our future webinars. Please stay tuned, and thank you very much again. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.